you know if Michael is coming? You know if Michael Allen is coming? Okay. And Tiffany is away. Okay, good enough. We have a quorum present. Commissioners, has anyone looked at the minutes for June 26th and July 24th? And if so, do you have motion for one or both minutes?
I'll move to approve the June 26, 2023 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes for June 26 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay. So the minutes for June 26, 2023.
I wasn't here for the other one.
Commissioners, take a look down at the agenda. Does anybody need to recuse themselves from discussion on any of these items?
Yes, sir. I need to recuse myself on item A, 4221 Forest Park Avenue.
Anybody else? Okay, looking down through the agenda, is this the order that we want to hear things in?
Sure.
Okay, then this will be our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. As far as July 24th, do we want to approve those minutes as well?
We had no motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of the July 24th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes for July 24th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Minutes for July 24th, 2023 are also approved. To begin, let's do agenda item A, 4221 Forest Park Avenue.
Jan Cameron with the Culture Resources Office. This is a preliminary review application. Let me get to it. And many of you will remember this building as the Allied Photo Color Center. And we spent many of our early years taking slides to this building. The proposal is to demolish it for the construction of a four-story senior citizen apartment, assisted living apartments. So we are looking at this under the Preservation Review District. It is not listed on the National Register, but it has been determined by the staff, after much consideration, that it is in fact considered a merit building under the definition of the ordinance. That is, it would be contributing to a potential historic district. I'll say more on that in a second. This is the location. You can see that the only historic district is a block to the north. And an aerial view of the site in red. And this is the most outstanding element of the existing building, which is not original. The building itself was constructed in 1918 and had significant alterations done in the 30s. But this is a wonderful entry. Unfortunately, it's all bricks, so they really can't be salvaged. This is the proposal for the new building. It will entirely fill the lot. It complies with the requirements of the form-based code, and it also has adopted some suggestions by the Cultural Resources Office to bring it into more compatibility. This is the first floor plan. There will be parking underneath the building. So I've outlined it in red so you can see the actual scale of it. This is the west elevation. And then we're back to the existing building now. These are the both side elevations. You can see that the second story was in fact added later, again in the 30s, that it started its life as a one-story warehouse. This is the interior condition. It is sound under the definition of the ordinance, but as you can see, it's deteriorated considerably. Okay. And a little bit of context. Now, as you can see as we go through here, that there's a wide variety of parking lots, altered historic buildings, new construction, And there really isn't any consistency, so this would never be considered to be a historic district, have the potential to be a historic district, I should say. And therefore, while this is a merit building, there is really no historic district for it to be compatible with. Because of that, the staff is recommending that a preliminary review be granted to the demolition and to the proposed new construction for the apartments. There are a couple of letters that I think all the board members have received, but one that you may not have is from Peter Thatcher, who is opposed to the demolition of the existing structure. Pass that down in case you haven't seen it. Any questions?
Questions, commissioners? Thank you. The applicant present?
Oh, sorry.
Chairman, how are you today?
Grice.
Good. Carl Grice, Grice Group Architects. We're under contract with the Independence Center for this new 38-unit building. See on the rendering, the existing parking lot to the west of the building would remain, and we're looking at doing new parking underneath the building, grade level, and 3 stories of 1-bedroom senior apartments. I brought up another copy of this rendering to give you a better feel of the colors. Sometimes they don't come out as well on the PDFs there. And I also brought the actual materials for the exterior, which we're looking at Nichiha panels as well as masonry on the first floor and on the south elevation and partial west elevation. We've had meetings with the Board of Adjustment in terms of some of the form-based code items that we've gotten approval on, and also work with Cultural Resources on some modifications to the exterior. One of those is that we created the band at the top portion of the building on the west and south elevation, as well as a vertical band on the south elevation as well, which projects out approximately 8 inches from the balance of the building.
I'm maybe in the wrong spot.
I wanted to do that for a really long time. I'm sorry, Carl.
That's okay, that's okay. We're open for any questions that might come out of this. This project is being funded through Missouri Housing Development Commission, part of their tax credit process.
Carl, who is that behind you?
My name's Thomas Laurie. I work for Independence Center for 20-plus years.
Commissioners, questions, either the Independence Center or the architect? Okay, thank you very much. Alderman Browning?
All right, commissioners. Thank you all. I'm here to speak in favor of approval for demolition of this building. The Independence Center is a wonderful organization providing much-needed services to people with severe mental illnesses. More important than that is the services that they provide that make people have a sense of belonging. I cannot emphasize enough the impact that this organization has for folks. It's located directly next door to what they call their clubhouse. This building will allow them to provide the kind of care that we would all want for our loved ones. The Independence Center did extensive community engagement with the West Pine Laclede Neighborhood Association, which is the neighborhood where this building would sit. They explored the possibility of retaining the facade, which we all agree is an interesting and very architecturally appealing facade. But unfortunately, it was not possible, especially for a nonprofit that is honestly using LIHTC credits to build this. We're doing everything we can here at the city to help the Independence Center bring this community asset to reality. And I ask that the Preservation Board please join me in supporting the construction of this vital new housing for some of the most vulnerable and yet still wonderful residents who have so much to give our city and just need a place to feel welcomed and expected.
Thank you, Alderman. Do I hear a motion?
I can do it. I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval for the demolition of 4221 Forest Park Avenue for the construction of a 4-story apartment building as the proposal meets the criteria for demolition under the Preservation Review Ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioners, we have a motion before us. It's been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Narayan, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
I recuse myself.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this vote. Counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Congratulations. Okay, calling agenda item B, 4153 Bingham. While she gets ready, Carl, just when I think I know what all your buildings are going to look like, you produce something in a completely different vocabulary.
Jan Cameron again. This is another preliminary review for 3 proposed demolitions on a National Register site, the Alligator Oil Clothing Building. And this is one of the 3. The other 2 are non-contributing in the National Register designation. So really not of interest to us. Now, this project also entails renovation, really, of the large building to the left of the screen. That's what they term Building 1 in the nomination. That is not under our purview. The only thing we are looking at is demolitions because of the Preservation Review District. This is Building 3. There'll be a test later. Here you go. Building 1 and Building 3. And Building 4 and Building 2, which is way up at the top, as I said, are non-contributing structures, and you will see why in a minute. This is the aerial view. And again, Building 3, which is certainly a contributing building. It has some interesting decorative detailing on the front. It is a poured concrete structure, so it is very sound, but deteriorated. Detailed shots of the building. And this is the interior as it exists now. This is the proposal. The building number 1 will be rehabilitated as a school. The other buildings on the site will be demolished to allow for parking and for sports fields. This is Building 1, a concrete frame building. This is Building 2. In 2012, when the nomination was, when the building was listed on the National Register. And this, I believe, is the best I can tell of Building 2 today on the right. And this is Building 4. So I think that no one would dispute that these are really not contributing structures. A little context, the area is mostly relatively small, single families, well-maintained and stable. Just quickly go through here so you can get an idea of the surrounding area. That have been looking at this site for quite a long time. And again, we're back to Building 4. So the staff is recommending that the board grant preliminary approval to the demolition of Building 2 and Building 4, but not Building 3 as a contributing element to an established National Register site. Any questions?
Commissioners, questions for Jan?
Can we go back to the picture of the one you want us to keep?
Through these quick. Some details, that's the main entry,
That's the one.
I still want to keep it.
That's the,
and this one right here, yeah.
thank you.
Building 1, I'm sorry, isn't in the preservation review district, is that?
It is, but renovation or alterations to it are not under our purview.
Got it.
Only demolitions.
Got it. I see, thank you.
What did you say the name of this company was? The Alligator?
Alligator Oil Clothing Company.
What? Did you know anything
There's a long National Register nomination that was prepared by a member of the board. Oh, we got-
Can tell you all about it after the meeting, over a beer.
Mike, in the olden days, they used to make clothing out of alligator oil.
I guess so.
They don't do that anymore. Further questions, commissioners?
Um,
Yeah, could you put the site plan back up, the proposed?
I'm sorry?
Have you got the proposal up there?
They're gonna make a presentation. I'm here to run the slides.
Do we have it in your presentation?
Just their concept plan, I think is what he wants to see.
Well, you will see that momentarily.
Okay, I just wanted to know where building 3 was.
Oh.
There comes a parking lot, if I recall.
It is approximately at the edge of the parking lot, in that general vicinity.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, is the applicant present? Yes.
Brian Crittenden from UIC. We're the architect for the project. And I'm joined by Jack Cruson, who's co-founder and chief strategy officer for Kairos Academy, is our client. And David Talent is here as well, the president of the Neighborhood Association. And you should have received letters of support from Mr. Talent and also from the alderman and a couple of other neighboring business owners. I'll just give Jan, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Just tell me when to stop.
Yeah, just go one more, just to give a little bit of context. The school's expanding. They have a charter that goes from 5th grade to 12th grade in Missouri. They started with 5th and 6th graders, and Jack can speak more to this. As those kids become 7th, 8th, 9th, and now 10th graders, the need for the high school arises. So the plan is to develop a high school at the site we're discussing today, and then they will maintain a facility in the near term for the middle school at the Concordia Publishing House on Jefferson in Miami. Next one. This is an overall of the site plan. I just coded the images a little bit to make it a little bit more clear. We're proposing the demolition of the smaller of the two contributing structures on the site, and I'll explain a little bit more of that. But in short, in order to facilitate a full athletic facility, which is critical to the high school, and fit the parking so we don't overwhelm the almost entirely residential neighborhood to the south, we couldn't find a method to not remove that building based on where it's sitting. There's also change in grade of about 30 foot from street to the back. So we're also having to terrace it, which makes it even more complicated to fit, large athletic facility and parking facility there. So we did study it in detail and came up with a real difficulty to maintain that building. The other thing is that because it is part of those larger complexes, we're not sure we wouldn't undermine the building when we remove all the other portions. There's about a story of unexposed foundation that would come away because it's adjacent to a cellar story of an adjacent structure. So we'd have 3 stories of unbraced wall that we're not sure would sustain, so it adds a little bit more risk to the overall project as well. I think you've seen all these. This is just some images of the proposed demolition. That's the building on the right. The next one has some interiors. The interiors were demolished under a permit, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. So most of the original office interior on the ground floor has been removed. And then we are proposing to rehabilitate, and I'll show you the proposed design for the sake of discussion today. This building, unfortunately, the exposed concrete on the exterior is in pretty bad shape in a lot of areas. We're proposing to skin it, which we think is a reasonable compromise. It will change the character of the building, but it will preserve all of the internal concrete construction. So the interiors will still be indicative of the original construction. of it, and we're proposing a translucent and glass ground floor to keep as much of that frame intact and represented from the street. Thanks. Pretty striking interiors. I think it's average like 13, 14-foot ceilings throughout. We've had structural analysis done of this building. There's a few sheared column capitals, but for the most part, it's all in pretty good shape from a frame. So we're sort of treating it almost as just starting with a concrete frame and going from there. This is the site plan. You can see on this, to answer your question, that dashed line in the parking lot represents the location of the contributing building that we're proposing to be demolished. So, and then to orient you further, the large box is the rehabilitated structure, and then the appendage to the top of the slide, which is to the north, is the gymnasium addition. That would actually sit at the lowest level, so the roof would be at street level. So you won't see that from the street, the way the site falls away. This is the site plan we used for our zoning variance for the use and for the parking requirements. And then a couple images of the proposed design. Like I said, we're using a polycarbonate and glass glazing system on the ground floor, so you will still see the concrete frame from the street, but it'll be obscured behind the glass, and then doing a lighter weight enclosure above, which is a corrugated white metal siding and randomly placed windows. Image looking straight on from a side street, and then I think there's one more from an angle. I think that's the next one. Plans are pretty straightforward. We are, just to be clear, only renovating the first 2 floors. So the street level and the upper floor at street level. The 2 lower levels, which are partial as the building goes down the hillside, will be shelf space for additional use. So if the middle school moves to the side or some other use, maybe a community-centered use is found, then we'll rehabilitate those floors at that time. So I'm going to turn it over to Jack, but I'm happy to answer any questions on the architecture or the site development.
Jack, we don't really need anything about the school.
Got it. Then we should skip all my slides entirely, but you should know that our community would be grateful for the opportunity to contribute educationally to the Bevo Mill neighborhood, as well as we believe architecturally and structurally.
Thanks.
Chairman, I have a question. So I assume you've taken a close look at your site. There's nowhere else to take that parking. See a building go down for parking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was on the advisory council. I think I might have been chair when the nomination went through. Yeah, we've looked at a dozen different ways to fit both the gymnasium on the site and the full field. And the challenge of grading, the part of the reason I didn't go into it, but part of the reason I put the zoning technical document on the site plan is to give you an idea of the changing grade. We've got a bunch of 6 to 12 to 20-foot retaining walls to make all that work out. So because we have to have a flat surface wide enough for that soccer, football field in that slope to cut into it. And then we've got the parking lot, which we wouldn't want to go beyond 1 in 20 slope, so close to flat. When you combine those with having to fit them on the site, we couldn't figure out a way to do it and not have to compromise the sports field into the corner.
There's no adjacent land where parking could be taken to allow that building to stay?
Not for a reasonable price. We did approach an adjacent property owner to the north about a property, but to date, the price is inaccessible to the school.
And the city's requiring that parking off-street?
So to be clear, at zoning variance, we did get a waiver on the parking requirement. That is more of a discussion with the neighborhood association. And I didn't mention this, but the building's subject to a lawsuit between the current owner and the neighborhood association, who is being represented by Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. And we entered into a more or less 3-way arrangement at the end of this that the list pendants and related suit will be dropped when the school purchases that. And a part of that overall plan or agreement, there's a neighborhood committee has been formed with the schools, and the key to that is a traffic committee. So we're working with a third-party traffic engineer to delineate the parking, and that's where a lot of those things have derived from. So to answer your question precisely, the city is not requiring it. It's more the discussion with the neighborhood association and making sure we're doing the right thing for all the neighborhood residents.
So if you don't build your parking lot, you could have trouble with the neighbors.
Yes. And it's, their support's obviously to release the list pendants on the property is critical to the project moving forward.
Well, I appreciate everything. I just told Commissioner Colleen that's very informative. But I have to ask, as the preparer of the National Register nomination, we know why it was prepared. It was to make this eligible for historic tax credits. Was that an avenue that you looked at for this project? I know that process has its vagaries, and for the large scale, it's get in line for the 2 cattle calls each year. It's not an easy guarantee. It's not an entitlement at all. But did you even try at any point?
We modeled it. Part of our concern, I mentioned that on how we're treating the other building is, we think it'd be a considerable challenge to do a true rehabilitation of the exposed concrete frame with the interstitial brick and the steel sash windows. In the front elevation, south elevation is not in too bad a shape, but as you go around, if we're looking at doing like an epoxy repair to the structure, we're having to take away so many pieces of that to repair it because you have to get a certain amount of depth to do the restoration of the concrete work there. And at a certain point, we're cutting away so much of that and having to rebuild it. And then we have exposed concrete in the brick. We could probably find a way to insulate that. But in terms of a facility that they're going to want to own for, a long, long time, we didn't think it was viable to meet the standards for preservation and complete the project. And that was really the main consideration.
Thank you.
Commissioners, further questions for the applicant?
I have one thing I need to add. I should have mentioned that we had received an email from Andrew Weil of the Landmarks Association, who was expressing his dismay at the proposed demolition of this building.
I have a question about the letter from the Neighborhood Association president. I just want to clarify. Is this letter from the Neighborhood Association based on some kind of vote, or is this a letter from you and you also happen to be the president of the Neighborhood Association?
From the Neighborhood Association. We had meetings about this. You
Okay.
guys come to our meetings. You need me up here?
Yes.
We've had meetings about it, just about this topic, and it is 95%. I mean, there are always going to be somebody who doesn't like a project, no matter what the project is, but about 95% of the people want this project. These buildings, I understand we want to protect historical buildings, but the unfortunate truth is the history of this building for the last 25 years has been crime. It's tore down the rest of the area surrounding it. The building is in such bad shape, you can see it coming into the neighborhood because it is literally the border of our neighborhood. Very first property in the neighborhood on that street.
Which building are you talking about?
All 3 of them, all of them. You can see them coming up Gravois or coming down Chippewa or Merrimack, and they are hideous. They are absolutely hideous. The property owners that own properties on the adjacent blocks, these properties are going down because there's no value in them putting a lot of money into these properties with that building looking like that.
Catherine, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay, commissioners. Jan, any more to add? Commissioner Colleen, you want to make this motion?
No, I don't.
Commissioner Richardson, do you want to make the motion?
Hamaker said she wanted to do it.
I do not.
Okay.
I made the last one.
Shook her head behind her back.
I'll make the motion. I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval for the demolition of buildings 2 and 4, as well as building 3.
You want a building permit involved? I mean,
With the condition that building 3 may not be torn down until a full building permit for the entire school complex has been applied for and is ready to be picked up.
is there a second to the motion? Chair seconds the motion for discussion. Discussion, Commissioner Richardson?
Well, if you read the materials here, the building's been vacant for at least 14 years or a longer period of time, and you're getting a reuse of a complex here for a community asset, a school, which has neighborhood support. And one thing in the analysis of staff that I would disagree with is, or staff said it's, building one isn't part of our purview, but it actually is it factors into the criteria here that I'm assuming we're getting one redeveloped into a school because they can do the rest of the site. They need this parking, they need this building 3 torn down. So, the reuse of building 1, the reuse of the entire site is tied to getting building 3, 2, and 4 torn down.
Any further discussion? Connie? Do you have anything to say?
No.
Commissioner Robinson, any comment?
No.
Okay.
I guess I'll just add, as the preparer of that nomination, I stand by the claim of significance for Building 3. So, I'm going to have to vote against this because I agree with the staff's assessment. It is a sound building, and, every reason it's listed in the National Register hasn't been taken away by the years of vacancy. So that might be a minority perspective, but
I seem to recall that this school had a similar proposal in a different neighborhood. And so and that one didn't get neighborhood support, so didn't move forward. So now I'm sort of wondering, is there another location? They found another location last time. So is there another location that could get neighborhood support and not knock down a contributing building? I'm not sure. That's where my logic is going in this conversation, though.
right.
Further discussion, commissioners? Okay. There's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. Call the roll. Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Narayan, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
No.
3 yeses, 3 noes, chair votes yes. Motion carries.
She defers to you.
Okay, agenda item C.
Bob Pettis with staff. This is the prelim for a new construction of a 2-story house at 1318 through 20 Lama. This is the site in question over in Suler. Some context for you. The owner, applicant, owns this property here. This is the site of the new construction. In order to meet some zoning requirements, they did combine with the lot behind it to make it a zoning compliant lot. Test that and get wants to later on. But so they combined the small cornerish lot with the back one to become zoning compliant. So the proposal has crossed other hurdles for zoning. It's kind of an interesting little site. Here's some context across the landline. It's a 2-story, 2.5. This is looking west on Lamai, right towards the dead end on lovely 55, just across the tree line. The site is to the left. This is the block. They're all connected. Again, the owner owns the property in the middle. And the new building is attached to right here. Here's some context of east on Lamai, just to throw a lot of context at you. Okay. this is the proposal, and this is the model example. I will note there was an error in your staff report, my staff report, for the address, but this is the correct address, and this is the correct model example. This is the example, and this is the new proposed front elevation. It'll be brick, fenestration is close enough to the model example. It's a little wider, but all in all, it complies with the requirements for an example in Soulard. This just shows you the first floor. It's kind of unique. Even though it's attached to the building, there's no internal flow between the two buildings. First floor is a garage and a bathroom space, and upstairs will be bedrooms. And it's accessed by the rear of the property. This shows you in context with the adjacent building. So fenestration lines up enough. It's massing is fine. Proportions are good. The applicant worked with us to get to this point. We thought it looked really good. This is the side. This is actually a private facade per their code in Soulard, but we did tweak a few things on the side, and they were open to those changes, and we are satisfied with the east elevation that you see on your right side and the back side here. And here's rendering showing the finished product. We think overall it's pretty good. Again, it does comply. They do have support from the SRG for the proposal. So given that, staff recommends preliminary approval with usual conditions that CRO will review the final plans, details, and materials.
So this is a fake door,
Sorry, it's a garage
It-
on the side.
but this front entrance is it's not real? It's a fake door?
It's a fake, it's false.
Interesting. Okay.
Any communications?
All I have is the one from the SRG.
Bob, those garage doors are visible from the street.
They are.
Are you gonna have them do anything a little bit more interesting with those?
When we got to that point, it was a little more flat before, but we were okay with the panels and the windows in that. Again, by the code, we couldn't really require a lot of it, but we did get them to tweak a little bit, do a little bit of a darker color scheme on the frame addition portion of it. But yeah, we felt that it was better than when we first started with that one side.
Okay.
Bob, what material will the shutters be?
We've got the applicant here.
Okay.
Call him up.
I'm Cliff Doucette with Doucette Architecture. I'm the architect on the project. This is Bill Tomber, who is the owner. You were asking about the shutters. Hadn't really gotten that far with it, but it'll probably be a composite wood, is what I'm thinking at this point.
Thank you.
And then the false door that you were asking about earlier, that is a false door, but above it is a window, a clear story window to allow some light to get into the garage.
Is it just an interior layout thing where the front door doesn't make sense?
Well, the front door is per the model example, so it's not operable, no, because it is also above where the actual slab is. Because as opposed to the existing house, that's 3 feet off the ground. So the grade only changes about 8 inches as it's going to the east. So we have to get down to the grade of the alley to get a car in. So while we do have, we're showing the stone foundation, we actually don't have an operable door because it'd be 3 feet above the ground.
Further questions for the applicant?
I have one for staff. Isn't it strange that we've just got a door hanging out there with no staircase?
You can work out details for a stair if you'd like, just to.
Oh, I don't know, I hate to have it by a stair, but maybe a raised landing.
I know, that's what I'm
Well,
wondering.
Look at the elevator, there was a way of trying to conceal it on the rendering, but we can figure out something else if you like.
Growies.
Sorry, what?
I see growies, yeah.
Growies.
That's what architects
Oh,
call plants.
it's very technical. Very technical. But again, if
The
you-
landscape architects love that.
All right.
It's just kind of funny. I don't know.
But if you put a stair there,
It's even sillier, right?
people are
Yeah,
gonna go
stairs
up there all the time.
I just like,
Ton of false doors.
Right.
can you just like vow that you're gonna do some plants that look better than these like little mounds? That's all I want.
Bill, you'll do it.
There we go.
Further questions for the applicants or for staff? Thank you very much. Commissioner Hamilton, you got a motion on this one?
Do.
Since you gave make fun of their landscaping.
Sorry.
Funky door.
Sorry. I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval to the design with the condition that the Cultural Resources Office review and approve final plans, exterior details, and material selections.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioners, I'm going to call a roll. The motion that is before us and seconded. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Do you vote yes or no? Yes. Alderman Ryan, do you vote yes or no? Yes. Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this vote. There are 6 yeses and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Congratulations. Catherine, are we still ahead of your drop dead time?
We are.
Okay, let's do agenda item D.
Recuse on this one?
Okay. This is an appeal. I need to, Bob, to the step, and I will tell the truth. I need to enter in the enabling ordinance. Steal your thing. Okay. So I can enunciate a little bit louder in case you guys can't hear. 6-4.
Correct that we do not have an applicant today?
We do not have an applicant. I can explain that as I go along, or should I mention that first or wait?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Enter in the enabling ordinance, 64689, as amended by 64925. The Benton Park ordinance, which is 67175. My PowerPoint presentation and my staff report. Essentially, this is an appeal to retain the wooden fence that you see up on the screen. To be brief, there was an overzealous contractor that was doing some additional work on the site, rebuilding a side porch, adding a rear porch, and at that time, they did construct this fence without a permit. In Benton Park, this is a corner property, so you have 2 public facades, and so I'll kind of get through more, but that's just the gist of it. And this is the fence. Here is the location, corner of Crittenden and Wisconsin. And here's your street level context. As you can see, it's kind of hard to really see from the street due to the trees. Here's the site plan. The red dot indicates where the fence is located. And here's a detail and a shot again of the proposed fence. In Benton Park, it says you cannot have a privacy fence in front of a public facade. And so being on a corner, this is a public facade technically. So 6-foot fence is not allowed at this location. That come off the rear of the property might be a little bit different story, but being dead center. Previously, there was like a 4-foot non-compliant fence. It didn't really have any kind of good design that met the code. But this is where we're at. So side of the gentleman, they've applied for a permit seeking a variance. Benton Park does support the applicant's request for an exception to the code. So given the fence is not compliant, given its location, staff recommends that the board uphold the director's denial of the application. I'm sorry, the applicant is not here. He is dealing with a family issue for a reoccurring medical condition that has to go monthly, so he cannot attend. You did get a letter, I believe, from the applicant stating as such. So, yeah.
Questions for staff?
Bob, it looks to me that this fence has some kind of stain on it. It's not just bare wood. Is that correct?
It's been, yeah, it's treated.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Further questions? Commissioner Allen, motion?
I move that the Preservation Board overturn the denial of the fence.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Maybe.
Commissioners, I'm going to call a roll.
Who was my second there? Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
I'm thinking. He's
He
thinking.
said he's thinking.
We like that. That is a good quality in a commission.
Thoughtful body.
Toying with me, isn't isn't he?
Yes. You're toying with him, or yes?
Yeah.
Commissioner Richardson, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Narayan, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, yes or no?
He's
refused.
abstained
Recused
from this.
himself. Again, I've done that. Commissioner Hammaker, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen, yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this vote. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Okay, let me find my agenda here.
That's why you missed it. I know, right? I thought we'd deal with this without you present.
I know.
Peter here last month.
Which is why I got to her. I didn't realize there's no new information.
You want to take a break, commissioners? Anybody?
You don't.
Calling agenda item E, which is a continuation of a previous.
2 times over.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do my spiel. I mean, it's already in the record. I'm still under oath. So last meeting, we did table the item. The applicant requested a deference as she was out of town. At that time, you were provided with a packet of financial information. Since then, we have received an additional letter from the Central West End Association, which you do have in front of you, and also a few other letters of, I believe, one for support and one not in support of the applicant. I have not any other information from the applicant, so anything else I can answer for you, I'm happy to do so before we turn it over to the applicant.
Just to clarify, there's been no submission of anything since our last meeting, so we're looking at the exact same package. Okay.
I did mention that I did offer the opportunity to submit information, and they declined.
Thank you.
Letters here, okay.
So give me just a minute here.
We do appear to have new letters though, right? Okay.
Yes, you have a new letter from Central West End addressing the submitted financial information. And the gist of that is that they have reviewed that information as well, and their stance is to still support that recommendation for denial.
Right, but then these 4 letters from neighborhoods are also new
There
from
are
the
some
last
new-
meeting,
There
yeah.
are some new information.
Okay.
They were sent to you as you did.
Yeah,
so
okay, I just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm ready.
There you are. You have anything you want to add? You're still under oath.
Yes, everything I say, true. We talked about it kind of before. I know you guys got to read those packets, but even from the beginning, when we listed it in 2019 for sale, I'd already put in $1,120,000 out of pocket. Listing price was $1.15 million. It dropped to $725,000. I have a letter from our realtor and also our general contractor, just to show how much extra we have put into the home. As of now, I sent in my Schedule E's for my taxes, but every year the business loses money. It is not profitable at all. Right now, current to date from purchase of the home till now, out of pocket, I have $1.4 million in a home that can't even sell for $725,000. I can barely pay the expenses on the home, let alone any of the debts. I had to refinance the home, and when I refinanced it, it only appraised for $700,000. I owed $892,000 just on the initial loans. So as I said in my letter, I borrowed from my own, and I didn't want to mingle personal finances, but I couldn't even pay back the loans. I had to borrow I have currently a pledged asset line and my HELOC that I borrowed from. Both of those, I can't even pay down the debt, and I'm actually paying those. The house, the business is not even paying for those loans monthly. That's all coming out of my pocket at an 8.5% interest rate for both of those. I can barely afford the interest, and zero of the principal of the debt is being paid down. It's still the same as it was. The business takes a loss every year. This year, it's projected to lose $30,000 less than or more, but for sure $30,000 less than it did last year. The business itself can't even pay the bills based off the expenses I sent in for just this year. It can't even pay it. All that's coming out of personal finances. Since our last meeting, I lowered it $225,000. I've had a few showings, but no offers. Interest rates are high, and people are just not interested. And since our last meeting, I had someone hit my back fence, partially knock it down. I've sort of put it back up the way it is, but I was quoted $7,000 to fix that. And then now I have gutter damage, seams. The seams on the gutters are damaged. There's rotting wood, soffits are damaged underneath, especially on the east side. I had 2 companies come, and they quoted me $100,000 now to repair the gutters. $50,000 just for scaffolding. I'm not an architect. I'm not a lawyer, an attorney, but I am a nurse. I have been for over 16 years. And honestly, the average human actually has 8 to 10 pints of blood in their body. 8% actually equates to the total body weight of the person. And if you get a small cut deep enough, you're going to slowly start to bleed out. But if you can stop the bleeding, replenish the blood supply, you can mitigate the damages. But this business and this home, honestly, it was in disrepair. I want what everybody else wants, to keep this home looking as fantastic as it can, to sell it to a family. But all these little cuts that I keep getting, now adding on $100,000 for the gutters, a new roof upwards of $180,000 or more, a fence that now needs to be repaired for $7,000. I can't pay the bills this year on the home itself without tapping into my children's college fund. And that is the 100% the truth, is where I'm literally right now liquidating assets from that savings to pay down this 8.5% interest loans. I cannot do it. It is slowly bleeding me out on all my finances. This business is not sustainable. And the only reason that I spent so much out of pocket is because I love this neighborhood. I know the neighbors do not want it to be an Airbnb. And matter of fact, I'm with them on that. I don't want it either. I want to sell it. I can't. I sent in I know Miss Hamilton's not here tonight, but she had requested that we send in some different, MLS listings of what's sold recently. And there's nothing that's going to bring me anything probably over $800,000 for that home. It's been on the market. I don't know what else to do. I can't pay the bills. I cannot afford this roof. There was no tax credits. You have the letters from the state from emails that were sent that would have brought in over $100,000, but they denied on that as well. But I can't afford this roof. And the product that's on there, its sole purpose and the way it's made was meant to look like original slate. Its goal is that. Modern technology at its finest, making a home look historic, protecting the integrity, making it look like the neighbors' homes as well. I just graciously ask the board, with all these extra expenses, that they just approve this roof. Because I cannot. I know that these finances show that. I know you see that. At $1.4 million, when you add up everything total, in a home that is not going to bring out. If I sell it for $900,000, I am losing money and I still owe on my debts. I can't even pay my debts off with that. I need to sell it for $1.4 million to pay off my debts. And we know it's not going to be sold for that.
Commissioners, questions for the appellant? We have 3 people here to speak. Larry Frederick? Us? Tell us your name, please.
Yeah, Lawrence Frederick,
Your zip code?
63108.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
It absolutely is.
Proceed.
Okay, well, it's a tough act to follow. Actually, as you may have read from the letter I sent, I'm a resident of Fullerton, Westminster Place. I was a former president of the Homeowners Association there, and we and my neighbors have always supported the Preservation Board and Jan and all the work that she's done, and everybody tries to stand by that because we all love these homes, but we agree that if you own one of these homes, you know they're money pits. And, you know, I have slate, or I used to have slate on the roof of my home. I have slate on the sides. That's even more troubling. Try to find somebody to fix that. So I recently have had some work done on the roof, a very small portion behind a parapet that wasn't visible from the street. It was $23,000. And I have projects lined up from now till the end of time that are thousands of dollars. And so, you know, everybody in that neighborhood is doing the best they can. They're not rich. But we do agree that the facades of the house need to be maintained. I'm not sure that we entirely agree on the necessity of exact materials being used, but it's clear that the Preservation Board and the efforts of the office are there to protect the facade of these houses, to make sure that the look and feel is preserved, even though the house itself may not be that preserved by it. So, you know, whatever you decide, I mean, I urge you to take into account the necessity of maintaining the look of these homes. And in some sense, we all knew what we were getting into. Well, maybe some of us did. I'm not sure that when I bought our house, maybe 12, 13 years ago, that I knew that a roof was going to cost $150,000 or more. I mean, I might have thought twice at that point, but I certainly knew there was going to be a lot of expense, and there has been. I will never get the money out of it that we've put into it. There's just no question about it. But we do, most of the people that I've talked to agree that, you know, while we can't make things better, we can make them worse. And so we would prefer that the look and feel be maintained. And it's sort of up to this committee to decide whether or not this proposal meets the look and feel. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jerry Fisher?
My name's Gary Fisher,
And your zip code?
63108.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes.
Proceed.
I also live on Fullerton's Westminster Place. And I presume, I think I heard a reference to the fact that you did get Jim Dwyer's input. Okay. He had sent me an email and asked me to read that into the record, but if you already have it, then I won't go there.
He'll be very sad if you don't. Can you read it really fast?
What? Well, yeah, would you like for me to?
Otherwise, he'll be angry at me next month.
All right, well, let me, here.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, it'd be a lot better, yeah. Thank you.
Just the second one, right?
This testimony is intended to supplement that which was presented on June 26, 2023, when this appeal was initially considered by the Preservation Board, at which time the appellant sought relief from the well-established Central West End Historic District standards based on a claim of financial hardship. The appellant was afforded an opportunity to submit evidence in support of that claim, and the appeal was tabled pending receipt and review of evidence of hardship by the board. Based on a thorough review of the 33 pages of evidence subsequently submitted by the appellant, which information was obtained by the undersigned pursuant to an FOIA request, it is reasonable to conclude that the hardship claim lacks merit and should therefore be deemed insufficient to support the appeal. It is presumed that the financial hardship exception to enforcement of historic district standards is intended to allow for accommodation of a good faith claim of a property owner of their limited resources and resulting inability to fund improvements as required by the relevant historic district standards. Such relief should be granted rarely and only when justified by verified evidence of an inability to fund improvements in the manner required by the design standards. That exception might reasonably apply in the case of a retiree pensioner with modest assets who is living on a limited fixed income. Such is not the case in this matter. In this instance, the appellant purchased the property as an investment on 2015 and has since obtained building permits on 6 occasions between 8/21/2015 and 4/16/2018 for improvements declared in the permit applications to be valued in the aggregate of $238,700. By that series of actions, the appellant demonstrated an awareness of the requirement that building permits be applied for and obtained prior to the commencement of work, knowledge that was conveniently ignored when the decision was made to replace the roof with an unauthorized material. Similarly, the appellant has expressed an awareness of and appreciation for historic preservation, but somehow neglected to consider that when authorizing replacement of the original slate roof. In summary, there is insufficient evidence to support either the appellant's claim of financial hardship or good faith behavior. We therefore recommend that the appeal be denied. So that's Mr. Dwyer's submittal. And then the comment that I wanted to make is that shortly before this re-roofing occurred at 4397, 4349 Westminster Place, applied for a permit and requested a dispensation of the rules for them. And they even got a petition signed by numerous members of the street. And regardless of that fact, they were denied and they were compelled to put a slate roof on all the exposed slopes of their roof. And that's just right up the street from this one, and it happened within a month or so of this re-roofing project. So if we're going to have a requirement that says slate replaces slate, then we need to be sure that that is applied to all people and not to some and dispensations for others. Thank you.
Lindsay, last name starts with a D. Oh, good enough. Okay, commissioners, that concludes the testimony in this matter. Commissioner Richardson, you want to make this motion?
I actually was going to say, I saw on the expense thing that it looks like my law firm worked on this in 2018. Can I ask the applicant, are we current, is Hush Blackwell helping you in any way currently?
No, we hired, spoke with them when we were looking into the tax credits getting denied, and that's when that
Got it.
law firm-
But that law firm is currently not helping in any way?
Correct.
Thank you.
Before you make a motion, can I clarify something with staff? Do you mind if I do that? Thank you. So, could you refresh my memory? What did she put on that roof? What is up there now?
It's the,
asphalt shingle. It's a slate line product that looks like slate. It's not a standard architectural shingle, but it's one that's meant to look like slate. So it's that kind of next step up we see that
Okay.
has the profile but not the actual depth.
And we gave a variance to the Archdiocese in this neighborhood, right? What did we
did.
let them, did we let them put asphalt shingles up?
No, it was a,
Clay tile.
well, it was actually like a clay tile, or was it like a composite
Yeah.
shingle?
It was
It was a
composite.
thicker composite one, correct. It was a little more substantial than that, had more detail and
Oh,
definition.
was it asphalt though?
No,
No.
no, it was not asphalt. It was, one was thicker, like a composite slate.
And we gave them an economic hardship
We
period.
we considered it, but I don't remember if that was in the final motion.
It was.
The third attempt, I think it was just kind of like, this is what they're gonna do over and over and over again until they come back, and I think that they well felt that the color was close enough and the product, although not that clay tile, was close enough, because again, it was thicker, like.
And some of that
And
just,
it was way up in the air.
it was hard to,
But
they
that was a
couldn't
hardship
find,
for
right?
Yeah.
They
Right,
couldn't,
yeah.
right? It wasn't, they couldn't find the same materials. They
Right,
had
it
to pick
was-
something else regardless.
Correct, it was a lead time, it
That's what
would
I
be
thought.
upwards of a year to get it made, so it would take, yes, that was also an issue at play, is the timing for placing that historic material.
Let's get a motion on the floor.
Thank you.
And continue the discussion.
Mr. Richardson, sorry.
Would you like to make a motion?
No, I,
Just kindly giving you that task.
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denials the roofing does not comply with the Central West End Local Historic District standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Commissioner Khalid?
this is a tough one. I have read through the applicant's financial information that she provided, and I would be tempted to give in to that or give that weight, but I'm hearing what the neighbors are saying. They are really throwing down the gauntlet in this neighborhood, and they want their slate roofs up there. And it's their neighborhood, they've made the rules, so it's tough to get around that.
Well, I was gonna say, and I think one of the things is like, they seem to be okay with Airbnb then, because there's nothing that says, hey, we'd rather have a composite roof than an Airbnb. And when I looked at the financials, if you back out depreciation as an expense, it actually made money in 2021. So I don't think the hardship was there. That it seems like perhaps they could continue to operate as an Airbnb and actually not only cover these existing expenses, but have some money that could go towards the roof.
I would agree. I mean, I think that the lack of profitability and hardship are not the same thing defined under the ordinance, and there's not enough personal financial information here, nor do we really necessarily need to see it unless the applicant wants to share to find hardship in this case. And I also think that, as Jim Dwyer from the Central West End Planning and Development Committee is reminding us that there were numerous building permits that did go through proper review on this property, so it's just really inexplicable the roof permit didn't follow the same course it should have.
Further discussion, commissioners?
Several of the letters do cite a desire to think about the ordinance again and to, maybe consider a slate alternative as a appropriate material moving forward. Should they be able to work with cultural resources to amend the ordinance? And they also say that's not on the books right now, so I want you to listen to what's on the books. So I agree it's a tricky thing when there is a desire to consider an alternative material moving forward. But that's not what we've got right now.
Right. No.
Any further discussion? Okay, commissioners, there's a motion before us. It's been made and seconded. I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Abstain.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes?
Alderman Narayan, do you vote yes or no?
yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this vote, counts 5 yeses and 2 abstentions. The motion carries. Okay, let's do agenda item F. Catherine, we still okay on time?
I'm still with you.
Okay.
Okay, Bob Bettis with staff, with Public Truth. This is in not Solar. I apologize. This is an appeal, so you need to enter in, again, 64689, which is the enabling ordinance, as amended by 64925. And then McKinley Heights ordinance 67901, my presentation and the PowerPoint. Nor the SULAR you see on the screen. It's actually in McKinley Heights. So we have, the question here is the replacement, question to retain the 3 windows in the upper story right here. Contact, it's on the west side of Indiana, just south of Ann. This is the building before. Some background, staff received an anonymous complaint to come out to site as there were windows being installed at the property without permits. I did go out. At that time, they were in the process of installing the windows and wrapping the brick molds and eyebrows. At the time, I did place a stop work order. The work was nearly complete, but they did finish the work on the 3 windows. Subsequently, the applicant did apply for a permit to retain the windows and the wrapping. That's why we're here. So this is the previous condition. Just like note before, all the windows in the front facade were already replaced. They were not the historic windows or approved replacement windows. They were vinyl 4. This is a view of the street where you can see now. This is the better shot that shows on the right, which is the other unit. Those brick molds are not wrapped. You can see that you're kind of lacking a little bit of that detail and definition you see with the brick mold and the eyebrow. On the left-hand side, you can see it's been covered over in the coil stock. And then the new windows installed. They're somewhat smaller, kind of blocked down, especially at the sill level. So again, they don't comply with covering the brick mold, and they are not compliant windows. At left is the window that was installed, and then on the right, just what we tend to see or we want to see when people do install windows. Look for certain dimensions, higher lift rail, knee rails that align, and also that fits the opening correctly, and the window is not wrapped. We have received a letter you were forwarded from McKinley Heights. They are not in support of the applicant's request for an exception to the code. Staff recommends that the board uphold the purchase denial since the windows and wrapping do not conform with the standards.
Did you introduce everything you need to introduce?
I did.
Okay. Questions for staff?
Any particular reason why the owner did not comply with the stop work order? Do we have any, did you discuss this with the owner?
At that time, I did have a interaction with the owner. They
Interaction?
I believe at that time, work was nearly complete, and I believe they felt strongly that they was to retain their work.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Thank you. Let's hear from the appellant. Thank you for your patience.
Lisa Faramarzi, 63104 is my,
Want to give it through?
yes, I do.
See.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We purchased the property, I purchased it with Billy Muse in March 2019, and we didn't know that there was a permit required to replace the windows. We really had no idea that vinyl windows weren't, they were not acceptable because ours were already vinyl when we moved in there, and the majority on our street seemed to be vinyl windows. when we contacted our contractor to put in the windows, he also did not know it was a historic district and that vinyl windows weren't acceptable because he's replacing vinyl windows. We purchased a property from Manor Real Estate, who did the rehab on the building. And, they replaced the windows with vinyl, so right now I'm kind of confused how they got permission to install vinyl windows when they did the rehab on the building. I contacted 3 contractors to get quotes on historical window replacement. One of them said they would not even deal with the city of St. Louis because they cannot get any permits to go through. They can't get them approved. I did get 2 other bids. One was for the 3 windows, $8,400, and the other one was $14,000. So, that's quite a bit of money for 3 windows, but is it possible to keep these windows? And I understand you don't like the vinyl or the white wrapping around them, to go back to the original brick mold. I know they all have said that they would have to replace that, because the windows are of different size. That's all. I don't really have anything else to, if you have any questions.
So you are willing to have wooden brick molds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The questions for you, Helen?
So is it that you didn't know a permit was required, or you thought your contractor was getting a permit?
No, I didn't know that a permit was required, and the contractor didn't ever mention a permit was needed to be required, was required.
I have some information. I'm sorry not to interrupt, but Corridor, we received an email in January asking about this property, and we told them at the time that it's here in a historic district. So that was from Window World. They were doing, obviously, research for your property. And at that time, we told them you're in a historic district. So
Well, they never came and gave us a bid, so,
we were calling for comments.
okay.
Further questions for the appellant?
Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson down there, you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the application as the installed vinyl windows and wrapping and wrap trim are not compliant with the McKinley Heights Local Historic District design guidelines.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So I know you can get sash pack replacement historic windows for far less than the $8,000 and $14,000 that's been quoted. Installed.
Any solution. Notices that there's a other half of the building next door. That they come close to match. Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. Call the roll. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no? Yes. Alderman Narayan, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this vote. There are 6 yeses and 1 abstention. Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioners. Agenda item G.
Francis Stephan's still here. This is in the Lafayette Square Historic District, labeled correctly. So you need to enter in. in the ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925. The Lafayette Square Ordinance 69112 as amended by 70926. My PowerPoint presentation and my staff. We have another fence issue. This one, Lafayette Square. We received a complaint that a fence was constructed at 1801 LaSalle Street. You can see in the picture here, this is looking north on 18th Street, and the fence question is back here along this pedestrian walkway that comes off the alley and Avenue Showed. Here's the lot area in question. It's a little bit, it's been chopped up over the years, obviously, but the street's being vacated. The context of the fence runs right back through here. Winter view giving a context looking north on the site, and this is the older fence, but this is a location. You can see where we're at and what we're doing. This is also looking west on 18th Street. This is the previous fence that was 6 feet in height. You'll note on this photograph that there was an older brick wall and a poured concrete wall in back. That allowed the fence itself to be 6 feet, these existing, and they obviously were, I think they were kind of modified from an older wall of some sort, but they were removed. And the new wall, the new fence that was constructed, starts out at 6 feet in height. And then as it gets further to the north, the site slopes significantly, and then you go from 6 feet to almost 90 inches at the end. And there's kind of a stepped manner to the fence, and it happens on both stages of the fence, where as you get further north, that other stage gets up to 90 inches and over the allowed height requirements for privacy fences and this. Talked to the applicant a couple times about options to modify the fence, perhaps even reintroduce a little foundation wall at the bottom to bring the height to a compliant way. We wish that they would keep this fence as is, and she'll get into that. Part of the application will also be to do an additional run of fencing at the alley, which you see here. So the application calls for the retention of the non-compliant fence along 18th, and then also a tall fence at the alley, and also a non-compliant height as well. You have received a letter from Lafayette Square in support of staff's denial. So given the non-compliant height of the fence, staff recommends that the board uphold the effective denial.
So is this two things or one thing?
How you want to look at it. I mean, you can, of course, your motions could split them up, but I mean, really it's an appeal of an application for non-compliant fence. So I mean, she did apply for a permit, so it's pretty much an appeal for the entire proposal. So one is not built, one is built.
But to clarify, there actually was no permit applied for prior to this, right?
Correct. It's
Okay.
built without it.
Got it.
Other questions for staff? Okay, is the appellant present?
I'll be very brief. I know we're your last one. But hi.
Almost.
Okay. I'm Audra Hubble. This is my husband, Teddy. We moved in January to the neighborhood. We love it.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
It is the truth.
That goes till midnight.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get started. So we moved in January. It was in rough condition. We needed to do a number of updates, some, the not so glamorous stuff, tuck pointing, roof, electrical. And then when the weather warmed up, we turned our vision to the outside. We have 2 young kids. When we bought the house, by the time we moved in, the back fence was missing. It had fallen in. And then this fence, when we had someone come look at it, they pushed it and it fell in both ways, into the yard and into this pedestrian path. So it was in rough shape. So that's part of the reason we moved quickly. And we did not do it the right way. And we learned our lesson on our first outdoor project, which is why we stopped halfway through and hope to do it the right way. But I guess the best that I can do is tell you why we did it and why it is the way it is. So we just, like I said, we moved quickly. We had a contractor who was ready to start, and we built it to roughly the same height, albeit the curb isn't there, and the same material. So exact same footprint, same height at the top, but then that curb itself was crumbling, and the bricks were falling out, and there was holes leading into the yard. So it was pretty rough, but we admit we didn't do it the right way. We know that's frustrating for people that are volunteering their time to hold up protocol. A couple of the reasons why it is 7 feet is, as Mr. Bettis mentioned, it is 6 feet, big slope. So it's not that we're against, cutting it would not be fun, but the reason that I'm maybe fighting more for that than even the 7-foot fence in the back is the math is such that we would have to stair step it roughly 6 times and kind of do that ledge for it to always be 6 feet everywhere, because it's a 2-foot grade from start to finish. The curb we had quoted, it was a little bit pricey, and I mistakenly didn't realize that the measurements were from the bottom of the curb. So I thought, oh, maybe this is better looking than a concrete curb. So that was my mistake. Anyway, long story short, it would either have to be stair-stepped, or we could start the fence at the lowest points were 6 feet, and then it would grade down, but then the highest points would be 6 feet, then grade down to 5 feet. That's short, a little bit short, and I love the people that walk past, but it's a traffic way. So we're outside, and it's not as private as one might hope. So if there's any room for, thank you. If the back fence doesn't get to be 7 feet, the reason we're asking for that is more aesthetic, so it would match. It blocks out a dumpster in the back that's for apartment property, and then there's a brick wall on the west side that's 7 feet, so it would just meet. That seems like if that needs to be 6 feet, of course, but to me, I'm worried about just privacy with this cutting. Any questions?
Clarifying
Yeah.
your testimony. You really, really, really don't want to change the fence you built, but you'd be okay complying with the ordinance for the fence.
Correct.
Does the presence of this large parking lot impact your decision? I
Yes.
wonder where there's the model example for that, but I'm not going to get into that Lafayette Square political debate.
No, thank you.
Surface parking lot's not very historical.
It is viewable from much of the yard, and so as silly as it seems, that extra 7 or 12 inches blocks out a big chunk of that from most of our downstairs windows.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I live in Lafayette Square and have been seeing a lot of your work over the
Oh.
past year or so.
Yeah.
And so I understand that you have gotten permits for work that you've been doing.
So,
or maybe not. I was gonna ask why you didn't get a permit.
okay, so we haven't.
I've told you about the height situation.
We had a Boeing brick wall that was about ready to fall in. We knew that when we bought it. So that was an improvement that we did not get a permit for. We did a lot of landscaping work. So we haven't, besides painting the front, we haven't done anything, maybe I'm stepping in it here, but that needed a permit up to this point.
So you just were unaware that the fence project required a permit?
Well, I know that's a silly answer. I did.
I think, sorry.
It's okay, I'm just looking for the answer.
Our understanding was if we were replacing something to the exact measurements that was already there, and that was our advice from our contractor and the people that we spoke to in the neighborhood, right? And so they were saying, oh, well, if it's going to be exactly the same, then you don't need the permit. Our misunderstanding came when the curb that was falling onto the sidewalk was not taken into account onto the end measurements of the blade.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just wanted to check.
Further questions for the appellant? Anything you want to add to that?
One final, you touched on it, and you can kind of see it in one of the pictures, but one thing we are really mindful of is the historical brick wall on the west side of the property, which the back fence will meet. And so that height, we would like it to be uniform. To do so, we would need it to match the height that you currently see on the
Thank you.
Appellant, you want to do this one?
No.
Alderman Ryan.
Sure, I move that we overturn the preservation board's.
Second.
Any discussion, commissioners?
I just want to clarify, I guess. Is the motion to overturn the denial of the fence that's in now and approve their non-compliant 72-inch fence to complete it? I just want to make sure we're on the right thing.
For me, yes, that's what
Okay,
it would be,
great.
so that it came into line with that existing brick wall.
And for me too, for the same reasons, and also the fact that you have this non-historic parking lot meeting a commercial alley. This is a location where I think additional privacy is warranted. That's not something that Cody anticipated.
Further discussion, commissioners? Okay. We have a motion before us. It's made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Colleen, do you vote yes or no? Alderman Narayan, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Abstain.
There are also abstains on this. I count one,
What was
two,
that?
four yeses. And 3 abstentions. I did it. Right? 4 yeses.
Yes.
Abstention, the motion carries. Okay, commissioners. Commissioner Richardson, do I have a motion on agenda item H?
Yes, I move that the preservation, or that we direct the preservation board to prepare a report to the SHPO's office that the property at 4195 Delmar Boulevard meets the requirements of the National Register Criteria C for architecture.
Is it 4195 or 4915? Because it's written differently on our agenda.
4915.
4915.
4915. So
That's what I
right now-
meant, 4915.
And 4195 while we're at it, right?
Wouldn't that be funny?
Second. Do we already have a second? I don't know.
Any discussion? I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Narayan, Alderman Narayan, yes or no?
Yes.
Lean, yes or no?
Yes.
Hamaker, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen, yes or no?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. There are 7 yeses and the motion closed. Commissioners, do we have any other business? There is none. Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That's an objection then. Right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.